Purple and pink.
All right.
We're looking at a
Hey,
beach ball right now for anybody listening.
yeah.
And
So let's look at this, Brent. What? Let me hold it right. Actually, I'll do this. I'll do this. That way, it's good. Can you hear me?
okay,
Okay. Is it?
yeah,
Am I
there
too
you go,
far away?
there you go,
All
there you
right. So, what color is this beach ball?
go. I see purple, pink, and yellow.
Okay, it's purple, pink, and yellow. Got it. Now, if I told you it's actually blue and orange, what would you say?
I would say, well, I don't see blue and orange, so
No, but I'm like, dude, it's blue and orange. Just trust me. That's the way life is. This is blue and
well,
orange.
no, it's purple, pink, and yellow.
Okay.
I'm looking at it. What
Yeah,
are you
yeah, yeah,
talking
yeah,
about?
yeah. But I'm looking at it and it's blue and orange, and that's just what it is, bro. So uh here's now there you go.
Oh wow, look at that.
There's some blue, there's some
Different,
yellow, there's some
it's different
orange. This is
colors.
actually green, by the
Yeah.
way. It's all these colors, but what's the point of the beach ball exercise, Brant? Why don't you tee us up? Why are we talking about a beach ball?
Well, in our coaching moment earlier this week, we had talked about the difference between perception and perspective. And perception is your interpretation of the world based on your own biases, but based on your own experiences and based on even old or recent events causing you to look through a lens. So that's your perception. And then we gain perspective by asking questions, and uh, that can adjust, change, or alter our perception. And so, in this case, the beach ball exercise, when you have two people hold a beach ball and they do just that. Hey, what color is your beach ball? What color is your beach ball? They're both describing a different colored beach ball. The reality is actually kind of in the middle of each person's perception. The reality is it's a beach ball. That's the reality. And then in order to gain perspective, one person has to ask them, "Hey, so what color are you seeing on your side?" And what does that tell me? That tells me that the beach ball has multiple colors and some that I'm not even aware of.
So just to break this
So,
down, how's it sound? Are we good? I just want to
yeah,
make sure we're good.
yeah,
So just to break this down, what I see is my perception. But in
yes,
order for me to understand how someone else sees what they see, I have to gain perspective.
correct,
And you do that by asking them questions.
exactly.
Okay. So this is super interesting. Now, obviously, there's a lot going on in the world today. Like our country, United States, has been divided pretty heavily. I mean, my whole life there's been division, but it ebbs and flows. In the last probably
Sure.
5 or 6 years, I mean, since COVID, it's been one thing after the other where someone has a perspective and they literally cannot fathom how someone else could have another perspective. They just can't fathom it. So,
Yeah.
I have something, Brent. I've never actually shared this before, but I this is one of my gratitude prayers every day. I pray for people to find growth, gratitude, empathy, forgiveness, and acceptance.
Mm.
So, let's think of the person who literally has the opposite perception of you. Can you have empathy for that person? And now in the heat of the moment, like let's use something
Well,
that's maybe
define empathy just real quick so we're all on the same page.
I think empathy by and large is understanding. Like you
Okay.
understand how they got where they are. Like
And relate
like like
and can relate or uh almost associate where they're at with based on maybe your past experience or
yeah.
something that may have happened to
Yeah.
you or okay.
Not only do you understand what it is they're feeling or going through, but you also can, put yourself in that perspective, right? You can
Okay.
empathize with it.
Okay. Got it.
So that's what I look at with empathy. So, when you think about, let's use something that, maybe it's divisive, but less divisive than some other things. Someone hunts, they're a hunter, and
Mhm.
someone can't understand how someone would ever kill an animal.
Got it.
right? So that's divisive for sure. There's people that are, that's a big problem for them. Now, the person who has never killed an animal, if you're someone who's grown up in a hunting family and you hear this person, they're judging you because you hunt. I mean, do you think empathy for that person who's judging you is the first thing that happens?
No, not at all.
Yeah, no, no, no. In fact, I would say empathy rarely happens. We rarely take the time to slow down and think like, okay, hold on. How does this person get to the point where they have this belief? Effectively, like, what is on your side of the beach ball?
Yeah.
Right? Really slowing down and asking questions and then being like, okay, so like, and of course you've got to be able to have actual conversation around this. And by the way, I'm going to tie this into sales, so it's worth it if you're wondering, what you're listening to right now. I promise you, there's some value there. But in order for us to truly make change, first we got to look in the mirror. Like, you're not going to change the world by changing other people. You got to change yourself. So I think you can do that by asking questions. I think you can do that by empathizing with the other side of the equation, the other side of the issue, or the other side of the line in the sand that you just are struggling to understand. It's like, if you can slow down and be like, okay, just be curious. I mean, that's the foundation, Brent, is coming from curiosity. I have two options. When I show you the beach ball and I'm like, hey, what color is this? And you're like, oh, it's blue and purple. And I'm like, dude, it's not. Like, so I can tell you you're wrong, or I can come from curiosity and be like, how'd you come up with that? Tell me more. So where's your mind go when you hear this?
Well, I think one of the critical errors, if you want to call it that I think people make nowadays, or probably always have, and maybe it's just amplified because of social media or whatever, is so using the beach ball as the example again. If my idea is that it's purple and pink and blue, and I make that my identity,
Mm,
then when you tell me, well, no, it's not, or whatever, you're now insulting my identity or who I think that I am. And I think a healthy way of approaching any idea or value or belief set is that they always can be challenged, and that you're open to having your ideas poked and prodded at and broke apart, and you can defend them, or maybe you even can change your mind. And I think that the challenge nowadays is that people tie it to who they are, and so they feel attacked. There's a lot of that. And I think, going into sales, that can be the same thing. People, you know become very tied to their objection or their motivation, and they make it their identity. And if you try to challenge their objection the wrong way,
I have the perfect example, Brent.
okay,
Okay. As you know, I'm dealing with I'm looking at a cabin, and this particular cabin, it's overpriced. It's been on the market over 100 days. It's nice. I like it. I think, I think it's a great property, and they overpriced it. They started at 1.45 million. Now it's at 1.3 million. It's probably worth like 1.15, maybe 1.2. So I have a conversation. This owner of this cabin owns the cabin. Now they can carry the note, right? And
okay,
so two things I want to share with you. And this is just fascinating because this could be a deal for this person or not. This could be the difference between this listing agent selling the property and not. So the first one is, I talk about price, and he's like, nope, I think the price is here, and I'm like, well, I think it's here, and so does the market because it hasn't sold. But whatever, like, I got to come from curiosity here a little bit, and I did. I asked him, how'd you come up with that? Tell me more. So he tells me, and I said, well, what if I could give you the price? And he's like, sounds great. Let's sell it. And I'm like, well, I need your seller to give me some great terms with the owner carry. If price is so important to them, like, why don't we get, maybe they can give me a better interest rate, maybe like 4.5%. The first thing he says, they won't go, they won't do that.
Mm.
And I'm like, okay, tell me more, you know? And he's like, well, they want what the bank gets. And I said, why? You know, and he's like, well, that's just what they want. And I said, okay, well, what are they going to do with the money? Now, of course, he didn't know. He said they need it. I'm like, so what do they need it for? Like, you know, and I already have gathered a bunch of pieces of the equation here, Brent. I know they own multiple homes. They own like 2 in Boise, 1 in Eagle, and then they have this one in McCall, you know. And they're also, I know they're in their mid to late 60s because I've done some research. So I know they don't want to do risky investments. So, like, if they held a note on a piece of property making 4.5%, which is, you know, more than the 10-year treasury, by the way, the 10-year treasury is paying 4, like, that's probably a decent investment for them. But
Yeah,
guess what the agent's doing? The agent's saying, I would never do that. So I know they would never do that.
correct.
That's the whole point. And it's like, dude, so I had to like slow him down, try and calm him down, and because he was getting very like, no, no, attacking. And I hope he took my message to heart because I was just sharing with him, like, well, are they going to invest this and make more than that? If the answer is no, like, are you sure they're not open to this? And if you don't know the answer, then you should probably ask because this could help them sell the cabin. So where's your mind go when you hear all that?
Well, I think this goes, my mind goes back to a week ago or 2 weeks ago when we were talking about being a professional.
Yeah.
And, you know, there's multiple layers of being a professional, but I think one of the most important things about being a professional is that we don't assume. We don't insert our perception into the the beginning of the deal, the middle of the deal, or the end of the deal. We never insert our perception as a professional into the deal. And we can make recommendations, but that's after we've asked questions and we understand what their perception is and what it is they're trying to accomplish and why. And I think that currently the scenario that you just gave me, the agent is, hopefully they're not listening to this, but they're not currently being a professional, because if they were being a professional, they would not assume any of this stuff. And it's very apparent that they're making assumptions because they don't know the answers to the questions. Well, I don't know why they just want it because that's what the banks get. How do you know? Did you ask them? Did they say, absolutely, we don't want to entertain anything unless it's full price and exactly the rate the bank gets? Now, if that were the case, he would say, they told me not to entertain anything that wasn't
Yes.
full price or the bank rate. But he's not
Yeah.
saying that. He's saying, you can tell he's inserting his perception.
Well, and let's put yourself in the agent's shoes. No, by the way, the agent's been in the business for a long time, longer than me. Actually, I've been in the business 20 years. They've been in the business longer than me. They're successful. They know what they're doing, and they've been on the market over 100 days. They started at 1.45. They're down to 1.3 million. They are running out of time. We're going into winter. Cabins don't sell in the winter. Like, they just don't. I mean, like, the amount of cabins that trade over the next 6 months is probably 10% of what will trade over the 6 months following that.
Yep. Yep.
So knowing all this, and you have a solution in front of you, and you don't like the solution, so you say they won't go for that. That part kind of blows me away. It's a lot of ego. Now, I like this guy a lot. I actually do. And Brent, there's plenty of people I don't like. So I like this guy. I just was kind of like, gosh, this is the beach ball, man. This is the freaking beach ball. And so I was doing my best to kind of get his perspective. And then I brought in some other perspective. And here's the 20 seconds or less so we can move on if you'd like. But it was as simple as this. I said, well, are you sure they don't want to do that? I'll tell you why I ask. And the reason I bring it up, I'm not trying to pull a fast one on your sellers and get some rate that's unreasonable. I have clients. I have one I'm meeting with here tomorrow. They're worth $100 million. And they have millions of dollars in 4-week treasury is getting 4.1%. Like this is what people do. You have certain buckets of money, and I don't know what your clients have. It sounds like you don't either, but this might be something they should consider so they can get the price that they want, or they need to lower the price, and I'll buy it that way with my own financing. I'm fine. So yeah.
Well, first of all, it sounds like you're hot on a good deal. I sense that you're probably going to get what you want out of it. That's my guess, but
Fingers crossed, man.
that's
We'll
me
see.
putting my perception on the deal.
Yes, I need it, and I need the good vibes, so I'll take it. And it is what it is. One thing on negotiation, I get asked this a lot. How do you learn how to negotiate? I'll tell you one of the things I have learned about negotiating. If you fall in love with something, your negotiation power goes down significantly. So
Honestly, that's why it's hard for people to sell their own homes. It
yeah,
really is, because
yeah,
it's like there's a block that happens when there's emotion involved, which is, like, mind you, why agents are actually so valuable, especially ones that are good and know how to ask good questions and gain perspective, because they're never good ones are never emotional. And so buyer, seller, emotional, they're attached for whatever reason. That's why a good, solid, non-emotional, professional real estate agent is worth every penny.
well, awesome, man. You want to dive into some news?
Before we do, I was wondering, I think we have time, honestly.
Yeah, yeah,
It was interesting that you said you brought up at the Coffees for Closers event that you held this week, which, by the way, is an amazing event. Top agents on a panel. You get to know ins and outs of all of these top agents and what they do. But you talked about the buying cycle, like kind of when people buy and sell.
sure.
Like, I just want to hit on that for a second, because to me, it's one of the most important fundamental things to understand in this business. And a really smart mentor of mine, he says, look, the number one moat you can build around your business is relationships. And the challenge is how many relationships do you have to have in order to have a pretty healthy business? It's a pretty significant number of relationships. And so, there's a system that has to follow it, but, understanding the context of the buying cycle, I think, is important. So I don't know if it makes sense to show slides on this. We can.
Yeah, yeah, show it. I think it'd be important for people to see it. It's easier. You got
Okay.
the slides. Let's take a look.
Yeah. So you can talk through this if you want. I'll just share the screen here.
Okay. So effectively, what we're talking about is like you just take a typical human being, if you will, and a typical American who is going to buy real estate. The tops, yeah, the tops are representing when they buy. The very top, they buy a home. Now they might sell a home too, but we're focusing on buying, because typically, if someone is going to sell, they're going to buy as well. So that's why
Got
they're
it.
selling typically. So they might buy 3 to 5 homes in their life.
So we're kind of looking at a wavelength, and there's highs and there's peaks and there's valleys.
Correct.
And the
Correct.
peaks
So
are when they buy.
that's exactly right. That's
Got it.
exactly right. So the valleys, it should, the way this looks, it's like a nice curve, but the reality is you just fall off a cliff and
Yeah.
you stay on the bottom, and then you have a little bit of a ramp up. The ramp up, when they decide, hey, we're going to buy, that ramp up is effectively about a 10-week period. So that's what we are dealing with. Now, this is, Brent, one of my favorite parts to tell people is this is where all the money in real estate goes. All the advertising money, all the outside money, Zillow, Trulia, Realtor.com, every single lead purchase program is focusing on the 10 weeks when someone says, I'm going to buy a house, right? Like when Chase decides he's going to go buy a cabin, boom, that's what they're trying to get me, right? They're trying to get me to sign up, and because I'm looking, they're working towards getting me there. Now, correct me if I'm wrong, Brent. I know you do pretty well in real estate, but you don't have billions of dollars to spend on advertising, do you?
I do not have billions of dollars to spend on
Okay.
advertising.
Me either. Me either. And I've done all right, but I'm not that well. So if you don't have billions of dollars in advertising, then you probably don't want to play that game. So how do you avoid that game? I guess that's what we're really bringing up.
Well, and I think one important thing to point out is, the average is 10 years between the peaks. That's the average. But that's not the exact science, meaning
No.
that 10 weeks could show up anytime between year 1 and year 15 or 20.
Yeah. Yeah.
Like, so that's the other piece of the equation is you don't know when that 10 weeks is going to show up.
Yeah.
So
Yep.
so the kind of punchline here is if you're not going to invest billions of dollars into finding and into locating those people at that 10-week period, which you can do, you can find people at a 10-week period. By the way, Zillow, Realtor.com, all those people are investing billions of dollars into finding that. And then you have local real estate agents who are investing in pay-per-click and SEO to find those people as well.
Yeah.
So there's
And you can pay Zillow to give you someone they found if you want.
exactly. So there is a huge, huge, massive amount of competition in that 10-week space.
Yep.
The moat is in the relationship. And how do you have a relationship with that enough people to have a sustainable business? And so the punchline is you need to have an effective touch program that's high value, high frequency that inserts you into and it inserts them into your world, but also gives them value and gives them the association of you being the professional. That's number one. Number two is because the high frequency touches are happening when that 10-week period happens, for them, it seems natural to now say, I'm just going to call Brent. Like, you've shown you're consistent, you've shown you're professional, and you show that you sell real estate and you've given high value touches throughout indefinitely really is what needs to
Well,
happen.
and Brent, here's something that's interesting. So if they think about it, a good way to think about this, like name 2 brands of toothpaste. Go.
Colgate and Tom's.
Tom's. Okay. If you're not Colgate or Tom's, you're probably not going to be in Brent's cabinet.
Yeah.
You got to be that. And that's the same thing with realtor. Like if you go, ask your friend, like name 2 realtors, or, if you're not the first one that comes out of their mouth, you're probably not getting their business. And what's interesting, I've found, Brent, when you have a high frequency, high touch, high value program that's touching these people, that 10-week period, Zillow actually sends lots of business to me for free. I don't pay them. Why? Because Zillow got them excited about looking at homes, and they're like, "Hey, Chase, we found this home on Zillow."
Yeah.
So that's the position I'd rather be in, rather than writing, checks for tens of thousands of dollars to Zillow. So that's the piece that I think is, you said moat. It's the perfect term. How do you protect your business from all this money and technology that there's no way we're going to compete with? It's relationship, and it comes from those touches and being in their world. So
Okay. So if you're listening to this, here's where I want you to get excited. Like, I want you to get super excited. Zillow, Realtor.com, and your local agent doing pay-per-click, they're finding plenty of people in the 10-week period. They're finding and converting people in the 10-week period because 90% of real estate agents don't do this. Meaning, if you do it, you're in the top 10% of capturing the mind share of the people that you have in your database. So, like, that should excite people. Like, you want to put Zillow out of business. If 50% of the agent population had a really effective touch program, I think that would put Zillow out of business because you would become top of mind with enough people that there's not enough revenue inside of that 10-week period that they could capture because the minds have already been captured.
What's wild to me? I just thought about this because you're right. Most of those people aren't willing to do a touch program, and why? They don't have time, or they don't know how, or maybe they don't have money or whatever. And then those same people oftentimes are like, I would never join a team. Why would I join a team? I'm going to have to give them all this money. They didn't earn it. it's crazy to me. And a lot of those agents will literally just get out of the business. I was talking to an agent at the Coffees for Closers event at the end. She's like, yeah, I'm thinking about just leaving the business. Been in the business 13 years.
Wow.
And I'm like, have you ever thought about joining a team? And why did she want to leave the business? She's like, I am not following up with my people. I feel guilty. I'm not like, it's hard to go find business. And she's got all this business in the past. And, she's like, well, I never really considered a team because, I'm whatever. I like my brand. I'm like, you like your brand. No one knows about it because you don't tell anyone. So, like, what do you like about it? These are just weird things. I know. Sorry, it just popped up in my head. Hopefully, it doesn't.
Well, I mean,
offend anyone.
that's a perception thing, right? They
Oh
like
yeah,
agents tend to tie themselves to the idea of what their perception of what real estate should look like. And the second you start giving them perspective on different ways it can look, and they have the life that they want and the money that they want, like you can see the light bulb go off with a lot of people. So
yeah. The perspective is you love your brand so much that you're willing to leave the business rather than keep it.
all right. Let's jump into some news, man.
Okay, this one's interesting. I pulled this out and it kind of caught my eye. So, New York City renters save over broker fees after fee banned, but savings might not last. So here's kind of the summing up the article. New York City's Fairness in Apartment Rentals, FARE is the acronym, Act has ended the requirement that renters pay broker fees when the landlord is the one who hired the broker. So it sounds a lot like the lawsuit, right? The NAR settlement. Since
Mhm.
that went into effect June 11, 2025, renters are saving an average of $1,300 up front. But experts warn the savings may shrink over time. Landlords might raise monthly rents to make up lost income, especially in high demand areas. Also, rents did still go up 6% over last summer, but not as much as some feared, which is crazy. So let's think about this. I don't know what the average. Hold on, let me find out. I'll do the math. First of all, what's your knee jerk? I'm going to do the math, and I'm going to tell you something. So
Okay, so here's my knee jerk is, um, it, with landlords, you're dealing with investors. Okay, and this is something that I think a lot of regulators don't understand, and like when you come in and try to regulate things, especially when it's investors involved, it's just a math problem to them. Okay. So Chase, you're holding up 2448. What is that?
So the average rental rate in New York City, citywide, is $3,400. A 6% increase is $2,500 per year.
Okay.
So the 1,300 they're saving up front, they're paying almost double that over the course of a year.
An
So it
increase.
sounds
And
like
some of
they've
the
already
increase was
lost the
probably
savings.
natural. Some of the increase was probably natural, and some of it was probably
Probably.
was. I guess that's what I'm getting at is like it's a math problem. It's a math equation. That's why when taxes go up, when insurance goes up, you see rents go up. It's because the investor needs a particular return based on the amount of money they put into that property. And they'll do so long as the market allows it. And if you cap it, so you make it to where it's capped, what you're going to see is investors that can't sell their properties, banks have to take them back because they become, they're not profitable. So in this particular instance, they're not capping the rent. I understand that. And my point was to rent caps. But my point is what they've done is they said landlords can't charge the buyers these fees anymore. Landlords say, okay, no problem. But it's a math equation to me. So here's what the rent's going to be, so long as the market allows it.
Yeah, this is a typical scenario where a politician and or attorneys probably grab some money, and politicians grab some votes, and they want to pee on your leg and tell you it's raining, right? Like, look what I did for you. But I mean, you didn't keep rent down,
Yeah.
and it doesn't matter. Like, this is kind of like, why don't we make minimum wage $100 an hour? It's like, okay, well, let's do it. And now that, McDonald's freaking meal is going to be $27
Or
for
it's
one person.
not, and they won't have workers
Well, yeah, I mean,
because they can
exactly.
hire machines and AI for pennies on the dollar, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So you just want to understand like what's actually going to take place here and go from there. All right, let's jump to another article. The decline of NEPO home buyers. First time home buyers demographics are changing. So the share of first time home buyers who receive financial help from family, so-called NEPO home buyers, has dropped. In 2024, only 25% of first time home buyers got such help, down from 36% in 2010. The typical first time buyer is now older. Average age is 38 and has higher income, median income of 97,000. The article argues this shift is making homeownership more exclusive to younger buyers without generational wealth to lean on. Okay, so questions that we can kind of jump into are: what are the implications for markets and agents when first time homebuyers are older with higher incomes and less family help?
I think agents are they're just going to need to anticipate a more well-informed and assertive buyer. I mean, someone that's 38 years old has a lot of life experience, whether they bought a home or not. Like they're more financially sound, they've lived life, they're probably more assertive. But I also think that affordability, my guess is even like by that point at 38, people when they're buying are going to be more likely to go to suburban or secondary markets. So that could redefine hot zones. Like suburban and secondary markets could actually be the go-to. I was actually just recorded some content yesterday, and um, rural markets in our area came in uh, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth in the top 10 most expensive markets in our area, and they were rural markets. And I think part of that, what's causing that is, the first time home buyer is older and they're not wanting to buy in the urban locations. So
Yeah, I think here's what goes through my head, and it's maybe only relatable to me. But when I got into real estate, I was 22 years old, Brent. I already had the whole you're young. Even when I was dealing with the average age of a first time home buyer, let me see, what was the average? Was the average age of a first time home buyer in 2007? Let's just see what it spits out. I think it was around 25 would be my guess. Oh, no, it was older, 31, 31. So now it's 38. In 1981, it was 29, 2007, 31, 2022, 36, and now it's 38. So all I can think about is if you're a real estate agent, I was worried. I looked young. I'm 42 now. I looked really, really, really young. And so I had to overcome that big objection of meeting people, and they're like, "You don't know what you're doing," with a lot of knowledge.
okay.
I had a skill ramp that I had to get into ASAP. And I would say, to your point, if someone's got a lot of life experience, they probably know how to ask questions and figure out if someone knows what the hell they're doing or not, even
Yeah.
if they don't. So I totally agree with you. They're going to have more experience, and you need to figure out your path to getting into, um, you know, knowledge, confidence, experience as quickly as possible. So you could join group coaching with Real Estate Growth Network, and that'd be a great path to grow yourself.
Well, that's a place where you can learn emotional trust building and logic based objection handling, which is with this demographic of person, it's going to be the most important. One other thought that I had, and I don't know if you want to move on, but one other thought that I had is what this tells me at that 38 year old mark is I think agents should be educating communities more often through first time homebuyer seminars, because the fact that the NEPO home buyer has kind of disintegrated just tells me that there's not enough agents out there talking about creative ways to get into the game for a first time home buyer, and also shifting the perception of this younger generation that owning a home doesn't tie you down. It actually creates future freedom. So, I think that there's a perspective shift that needs to happen with the younger people. And I think some of it is tied to affordability. I do agree there, but I don't think all of it's tied to affordability, because there are creative ways to house hack and make it happen.
Well, I'm gonna do some shots fired. I just saw someone. It's someone in the real estate community who's kind of a big deal. They do a lot of business and they're a coach for a bigger coaching company. They're one of the coaches there, and they posted something like, "I rent. We're not the same." It was like some sort of thing, like they're bragging that they're a renter and because they're building their net worth. And I look at some people like Grant Cardone and some other people have been trumpeting like never own. That's the dumbest thing ever. You should rent. And we've already busted this a million times over. If you are Warren Buffett of investing, that's probably accurate. You probably should not tie up any
Or a
wealth
Grant
in real
Cardone.
estate. Yeah, maybe Grant Cardone too. Yeah, of course. He knows how to take money and use other people's money and make a lot of money. You don't. If you
Although I
did,
will say with Grant Cardone, when the fires happened in California, he was one of them talking about his personal residence being threatened by fire. Just saying. Like,
are you sure he wasn't renting it?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah, but of course he owns real estate. Like he's too wealthy not to own real estate now. What he's saying is like when you're young, you should be renting, and I just think that's total bullshit. And I wonder how much of that has been here. Think about it. Like rental rates are up 6% in New York City. Guess what happens when you buy a home? You lock in the payment. Taxes can go up very, very minor, right? Like you never see your taxes on your whole property go up 6% a year. That would never happen on the entire payment you make. It just wouldn't happen. Unlike rent, they can be like, rent's going up. And you're like, no, I don't want to. And they're like, okay, move out. Have
or
fun.
it could go, hey, I'm selling my property. You're on a month to month. You need to move out.
Yeah.
So now you're at the whim of someone else.
Yeah, I'm gonna have
I think
strangers come dig through your shit, and they're gonna look at the house.
The case that's been made a couple times is someone would say, hey, you have to put this much down. If you rented and you invested that, you could X, Y, and Z, whatever. And first of all, you can get in for way less money down than what that
In
example
Idaho,
is,
Brent,
but
$500.
there you go. Yeah.
You can put $500 down and you can buy a house in
You're
Idaho.
going to pay to live no matter what. So are you
Yes.
going to pay 100% interest, or are you going to pay 6%? It's your choice, because both are going to cost you money. They cost you every month. One's just going to improve your net worth and give you leverage for the future, which is
Well, and you've seen the
fascinating.
memes and reels where people are like, in my day, I bought a house with 2 buttons and a nickel,
Yeah.
right? And so they're essentially making fun of how cheap housing was then, and now it's super expensive. Do you think that trend is going to change? So
No.
no, your kids are going to pay more than you are. So what are you waiting for, dude? Figure it out. Go get your foot in the real estate
Get in
market.
the game. Get in the game.
Exactly.
All right. I want to end with a thought. Because I was having a conversation with someone last week, and we were talking about, noticing agents switching brokerages. There was a stint, especially because it got really hard in 24 and like first half of 25. Like it was hard. There was some hard times, and so people were switching and hopping brokerages. And there's nothing wrong with changing your environment or changing your brokerage. This is not about that, but this is just a thought. And I want to know what you think when I say this, Chase. You've changed brokerages 3 times, but you haven't changed you once. What comes to mind when I say that?
I think what you're saying is they're having problems everywhere they go. It might be the case that they're a part of the problem.
Yeah. Here's the reality of real estate. For anybody listening to this who's at a place that's not quote unquote meeting their needs, and they need to go somewhere else to find success, is your environment does play a role. But the biggest role in your success in real estate or anywhere, being an entrepreneur, doesn't matter, is skill and will. That's it. If you are not focused on building your skill set and becoming better every day, by the way, that's your responsibility. That is nobody else's responsibility, no matter what brokerage or team you're on. And then if you're not having the work ethic, the show up and treat it like a job, be there at 8 in the morning, stay till 5, 6, 7, whatever time, especially if you're new and not making money there. Why are you going home? Why are you leaving at noon? Like, none of that to me makes sense. And so people are running, but unfortunately, they're running and they're finding them on the other end.
So two thoughts. One is just a saying my mentor had kind of hammered home to me. She said, people always think the grass is greener on the other side. And the reality is the grass is greener where you water it. So where are you at, and are you watering the grass where you're at? And then if you're watering it and it's great and you still see opportunity, then go, because at least you're going to take someone who waters grass with you. The second thing that goes through my head is the interview that I had at Coffees for Closers a couple days ago. I was interviewing a top producing agent. She's only been in the business 4 years. She's already done 75 million or something like that.
Wow, that's good.
She said, yeah, when I started, I did 3 to 5 open houses a week. And I'm like, I look up and I'm like, I don't see anyone writing this down. And, Brent, there's, whatever, 60 people, 70 people in that room. They're all agents who are pushing to grow and get better. None of them are going to do that.
Yeah.
So, man, what if you just did it? Like, in this business, you said will or skill. I love that. That's you either have you don't have the skill to do it, or you don't have the will to do it if you're not succeeding. The other thing I lean on, and maybe we can end on this, is you have 2 jobs in this business. Look or help people buy and sell. That's job 1. And if you can't do that job because you don't have anyone, then your only other job is find people that you can help buy and sell. That's it. That's the game.
And we overcomplicate it for sure. And it's as simple as that gal saying, I did 3 to 5 open houses per week. So if someone doesn't have business, it's where can you go put in the will? And by the way, like, that's where you're going to get the skill, is the reps, right? Of course, you want to practice and work on your conversation, work on your skill set for knowing how to have a good conversation. But like, the reps of just getting out there and beating the street, that's going to give you a lot of real world experience, and your ears going to be to the ground. So you're going to know when things are changing and what people are saying and why they're saying it, and how to handle those things in the future. So,
well, there was one other agent I interviewed, and he said, hey, I was bad at open houses. I did 61 open houses and I got 1 client. And so 2 things I took away from that. One is, like, he didn't do 6 open houses and then be like, I'm bad. He did 60. Okay. Now, by the way, he's going to do 80 units this year. And he's only been in the business for, I think, 5 years as well. So he's going to do 80 units this year. He put the work in at open houses, realized he's not good. He's very good at relationships, focuses on that. I just think you've got to really, 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 really drill down on something. Work ethic is not talked about enough in this business. And, I think you and I overlook that because we just assume everyone goes to work every day and puts in a really solid day, and then they work at home too, right? Like, maybe, they're willing to work at home at least. So, all right, I know we're over on time, but work more.
hey, that was a great closing thought. So if you're listening to this, if you didn't write it down, it's a skill or a will issue. What are you doing to improve your skill? What are you doing to make sure that you're being effective and efficient when you are working? So,
cool. This was awesome. Thanks, Brent. Thank you guys for sticking around this long, and we'll see you at group coaching.